So tonight we hear a bit more. I don't know whether it's actually full moon right now. When I was walking up to the center, I think it's more probably in 1 or 2 days. It's almost full. Friday. It's really worthwhile having a look because the moon's beautiful tonight. I know that we probably get a picture of the full moon in Bodh Gaya tonight. So just, yeah, full moon, celebration of Sangha. So we're going to start with Santika's there. She's going to put Vanessa through. So Vanessa did a recording. Vanessa is actually on retreat right now. So she did a recording about her, basically our pilgrimage, the part of that went to Anagarika, and I think she'll explain what she wants to say. Sorry, I'm stumbling a bit over my words. Hope it gets better. Santika?
Okay, shall I take over then? So I'll try and unspotlight you. And I shall share Vanessa.
Hello, I can't be with you this evening. I'm currently on retreat in Wales, so I thought I'd record something about my connection with India. I was really lucky to go in the group that Paul mentioned when he talked a couple of weeks ago that went from Nottingham on pilgrimage to India at the beginning of 2018. I'd never been to India before and I wasn't quite sure how I felt about going. I'd been to Nepal. I've travelled quite a lot in my life. I've been really lucky. But I don't know, India maybe never kind of appealed to me in the same way. I sort of remember hearing people in Nepal who'd been to India talking about how kind of chaotic and noisy and a bit frightening and overwhelming it could be. And I wasn't sure whether that was for me. And it is all of those things. And it was all of those things. But also it was really beautiful to be able to go in the context of a pilgrimage, or to go with a purpose, to go to places that just were really inspiring to see, and to see the breadth of Sangha that there is within Triratna, and just to have some sense of the size of Triratna within India. So the place that I'm going to talk about that we visited is called Nagaloka, and it's in the city of Nagpur, which is in the state of Maharashtra. And if you're looking at a map of India, and it's that kind of, you know, triangle shape, it's pretty much exactly in the middle, the city of Nagpur. And it's got quite a good percentage of Buddhists in Nagpur. It was the site of Dr. Ambedkar's mass conversion, and we visited the place that happened in, the mass conversion in 1956. And the proliferation of Buddhism has increased in that area. So in the 90s, Triratna bought a piece of land, it's about 15 acres in Nagpur, with the idea of trying to set something up that could try and help the spread of Buddhism in India. But the beautiful thing about Nagaloka is that it's not just Triratna. It was funded by Buddhists from all over Asia, different schools, different traditions. Yeah, lots of people put money into it. They wanted to see a revival of Buddhism in India, the country where it came from. And Nagaloka is the sort of vision, is what came out of that vision. And it describes itself as a training institute and conference centre. So the name Nagaloka, so Loka is place, and Naga is what's a Naga? A Naga is a sort of magical, mythical creature that's like a sea serpent or a dragon. And probably the most famous story about a Naga is when the Buddha had attained enlightenment and was meditating in those days post-enlightenment, probably trying to figure out what on earth had happened. I don't know. Mukalinda, who was the king of the Nagas, appeared during a storm in a cobra-like way and sort of protected. So kind of, yeah, he produced this hood over the Buddha so the Buddha could remain dry and continue to meditate. And I think that's probably the most famous story of the appearance of a Naga. So they're just these creatures that I think are, they're about transformation. And I think the place of the Nagas it really is a place of transformation as well. That's what I thought when I went there. So the training institute part is, looks very much like any kind of university. Young people go from all over India, and to all intents and purposes, it's got the usual stuff. You know, there's halls of residence, there's dining room, there's library, study rooms, all those sorts of things. But it also has shrine rooms, which was great. So when we were walking around, there's a big shrine room and there's several other smaller shrine rooms that are used at different times. And the other thing that you wouldn't expect to find in a university is this. I'm just going to bring you up a couple of pictures and show you. So just going back to that first one. So Anagarika is known for this walking Buddha. This is an 11-meter tall statue, gold, and it's really stunning. So this is the view when you first come through the gate of Anagarika and you look down this long path. There, walking towards you, is the Buddha. It's imposing, and you can see it from all over the campus. And I love that that fearlessness mudra that it has. This particular figure, he's walking towards you, and he's giving you that hand of fearlessness, that everything is okay. And all around it, there's these steps. So often in the evening, that's the quality of this picture wasn't so great because it was dusk, but that a lot of people, the students would gather around the picture of the Buddha. This is one of Dr. Ambedkar's favorite images of the Buddha, that it's a Buddha, the Buddha is a figure of action, that often we see Buddha figures who are meditating, or we see the Buddha lying down in parinirvana. But Dr. Ambedkar really wanted to emphasize that the Buddha is a figure of action. And I think this image shows that beautifully. One of the other things then is you get Dr. Ambedkar. So the way they are set up is Dr. Ambedkar is walking towards the Buddha and the Buddha is walking towards Dr. Ambedkar. And it's just this beautiful idea of the two of them heading towards each other. And we saw a couple of these images of Dr. Ambedkar with his staff, always covered in flowers. You know, that he was a man of action as well. And particularly in his later life, when his health wasn't so good, he often had this walking staff with him, and he was off out and about and going to meet the Buddha. So one of the things we did notice was that the male and the female students tend to study and meditate separately. And we thought, this is kind of curious. So we asked Anagarika what that was all about. And they said that often a lot of the parents of the female students were just worried about their safety. Now, we heard from Kusala Devi just the level of discrimination that women face in India. And they were saying that if the parents realised that the men and the women studied and meditated together, that they wouldn't let the young women come. So Anagarika just try and be very careful around those sort of social sensitivities, but also really want to encourage young women to come and learn about the Dharma and learn about social activism, to be able to take it back to their communities. So some of us joined the young women in their shrine rooms in the morning. We meditated with them for the few days that we were there. And it was very like being in our shrine room, except very different. And they start with the refuges and precepts like we would. They salute the shrine and then they sit. But this shrine room had no windows, it had no doors, it was basically just a roof. It was a solid building, but it was open to the elements, such was the heat. And the shrines are stunning. They're covered in flowers and plants, and it's such an act of devotion to make the shrines as beautiful as they can. So I was really inspired by the whole place. I was inspired by the fact that a lot of these young people have left very poor rural areas and travelled from all over India, you know, thousands of miles by train or bus or foot to get to Anagarika to study, with the intention of then being able to take what they know back to their communities. Some are inspired by Dr. Ambedkar and really didn't know much about Buddhism before they come. Some might have heard of Buddhism, but a lot don't. And that the courses are a mixture of all three things, of Buddhism, of Dr. Ambedkar's vision, and information about sort of social engagement, which feeds into Dr. Ambedkar's vision for a changed India. So they sort of start on an 8-month course, and they cover things like mitra study, which some of us do, that sort of basics of Buddhist teaching, meditation, the 3 jewels, and kind of a Triratna version of the 3 jewels, because Triratna are quite heavily involved with Anagarika. They'll also learn life skills, leadership skills, how to do social engagement, basic things like personal hygiene, how to cook, how to look after people, look after themselves, disaster management. There's all sorts of different things that are taught, as well as the sort of fundamentals of sort of the 3 jewels and Dr. Ambedkar's vision of equality, fraternity, and liberty. And then often they just go home, and that might be it. They come for 8 months, they do this course, and then they go back to where they've come from. And Anagarika try and stay in touch with people, with their alumni, and set up the idea of sort of networks of young folk around, so they can all be supported. But sometimes that's it. They have this input and these opportunities at Anagarika, and then they go back to where they've come from, and they spread the Dharma. Yeah, just thinking about that, just kind of, it really moves me. And I remember it really moving me at the time, that it just made me feel so grateful for everything that we have, and the level of support that we have, and the size of Sangha that we have, and the fact that there are activities and things we can be involved in. And often, you know, these people who really, really need the Dharma in their lives have had this taster, and then they go back and they just get on with it, and they start transforming the lives of their community. Yeah, it was the courage. And I think their inspiration and their interest, and they were really interested in us, where we're from, the fact that we were Buddhist, where had we been before, wanting to practice English, wanting to just like Paul said, there's that sense of curiosity and friendliness, and it was true Sangha. I think that the trip to India for me really, I'd heard that Triratna was an international movement, but I think being part of Triratna in the UK, we've got it all going on here. We're so lucky with what we have, and to see the movement and the organisation outside of Europe, particularly in India, where it's so strong and so necessary and can have such a transformative effect, was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And during COVID, they've sort of swung into action with a huge relief program, especially for a lot of the daily wage workers, like Kusala Devi was talking about a couple of weeks ago, the folk who, if they don't get work, they don't get paid. And then when they were trying to travel home to their villages and rural communities, a lot of the communities didn't really want them back, because they were worried they would bring COVID So they were really stuck, and places like Nagaloka, along with Karanar, India Dharma Trust, did a lot of work to provide them with food and basic necessities. Yeah, and there were 3 particular young women who I spoke to quite a bit during my three or 4 days there, and I hold them very dear. And I just want to, look at them. So this is one of the shrines. This is the main shrine room, just the flowers and the plants, and lots of little petals. The flowers on the grounds of Nagaloka were stunning, and people would go and pick flowers and make these beautiful patterns. And then these are these 3 young women. I think at least one of them was from Bihar, which is where that Vidya Vardhani is from, who is talking on Saturday, on Sangha Day. Just very, very poor area of northern India, and just the bravery of them coming down to Nagpur to want a better life and be able to take it back to their community. And I just, it was a fabulous place to go to. So that's one of my connections with India. I hope you found that interesting, and I hope you're all well, and I will catch up with you when I'm back from retreat. Thanks.
Yeah, that was lovely. Lovely to be reminded of Nagaloka. So I assume I'll just carry on from there. I'm still recording and still spotlighted. So hopefully you can all see and hear me. So I was coming at this from a slightly different perspective. I started off thinking about my connections with India, in a way reflecting back on what sense of connection I have now and kind of how that's grown or developed. So I was actually thinking back to in my 20s, I lived in around the Upton Park area of East London, and it's quite a multicultural area, and there's quite a significant Indian population there. So a lot of the shops, the cafes, takeaways, Indian owned and run. And I'd chosen to go to college in that area and live in that area because I liked the feel of it. I liked the area, and I liked the unpretentiousness of the college. It was a very mixed college. But in living there, I enjoyed having a different sense of a different area than that which I'd grown up in around Nottingham. But it didn't really go that deep in a way. Many of my friends in my younger years had travelled to India, but at that time I didn't. I chose not to. It's not that I wasn't interested in, but if I wanted to travel, it was usually to visit or where I had a connection. So like Vanessa said about having a sense of purpose to travelling. So in my youth I didn't have that sense of purpose with going to India. So it was in my later 20s that I first got a spark of interest in Buddhism. In finding out about Buddhism, I had quite a kind of strong sense of wanting to avoid any kind of inauthentic cultural appropriation. The sort of life I'd been around, seen the Hare Krishnas around, and tried reading about different faiths, tried reading books, and everything that I came across seemed a bit off-putting and inaccessible. So when I'd caught a glimpse of the Buddha, when first hearing of the Buddha, I was very clear that I wanted something that was practical, accessible, I didn't want the exotic trappings of a kind of Eastern faith. I wanted what it was that the Buddha had seen to get to a state of enlightenment. I wanted the practical teachings of the Buddha. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because sometimes I find the fact that we use Sanskrit names and Pali names challenging. I do find that challenging at times. Does it feel authentic? That's quite a strong value for me. So, and that's why I ended up in Triratna in a way, and why I appreciate Sangha for all his flaws, his idiosyncrasies. I really do appreciate what he was doing in setting up a new Buddhist movement when he set it up. Some of the things I'm going to touch on kind of give more understanding to that. Yeah, and another aspect was that through meeting Sangha and Triratna, I got to know of Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar has been a real source of inspiration and a challenge for me personally. I really draw on some of the things he's said, and the way his approach to why he converted, and his approach to conversion and his connection with Buddhism. So in 2018 I also went on the pilgrimage, and we had an order convention as well at the end of the pilgrimage. Those who weren't yet order members left and went home, and we stayed on to an order convention. So the itinerary was of interest because it had Dr. Ambedkar very firmly in there. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing some photos so you've got something to look at other than me. I'll try and see if I can find them. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so this is I'm starting off referring back to Paul's talk, if you were there for that. So I'm just trying to get things out of the way of my screen. So this is Chunabhati Centre. I just wanted to show it from the outside. It's such a simple structure, but as Paul said, it was such a warm welcome, such a lovely start to our travels through India in a way. So there's the shrine, and Dr. Ambedkar with the usual garland of flowers. So there's usually pictures, one of Sangha, one of Dr. Ambedkar on shrines in India, and the one of Ambedkar will get garlanded with flowers, and Sangha gets a flower offering. So from there we went to, so I just need to change the sizes on my screen. Okay, so this is one of the places we went to early on. So my photos are just in the order of that we went to places. So this is the stupa that's commemorating where Dr. Ambedkar was actually cremated. And we did some meditation and puja here. And this started to help me feel really connected with those who have a sense of connection with Dr. Ambedkar, of it feeling like that authentic connection, being there with other people who are inspired by, influenced by, people not of Triratna, just other people that are connecting with Dr. Ambedkar, his followers, and his influence. So then moving on, this is a picture of us walking from the Baja Retreat Centre, which is a gorgeous retreat centre. Really enjoyed our time there. And nearby there's some ancient Buddhist caves. So this is a step back into historic Buddhism. So Buddhism before the decline and disappearance of Buddhism in India. And I did feel a strong resonance with these, the simplicity of them. It's like a stupa in the middle, so reliquary. So these date from before Buddhist images were used, as before images of the Buddha were used. And the beautiful ceilings and the detail, these have been restored. Yeah, and are now visited historic sites. So just a little image in there. I think this was when we were visiting a centre somewhere. I really liked this image. I like the saying on it. I need to put my glasses on. So this is Dr. Ambedkar. Educate, agitate, organise. As is a battle, not for wealth or power. It is a battle for freedom. It is the battle of reclamation of human personality. Anyway, I like some of his battle cries, so just to throw that in there. So yeah, coming back to the historic sites. So we also went to caves in Alora and Ajanta, and they're amazing. They're beautiful. They really show the significance of Buddhism in India over such a long historic period. But also for me, they really showed the overlay of Hinduism, the appropriation of Hinduism. Much of the later caves, the outlying ones would be Buddhist, and the more central ones, the more ornate, the bigger, would have been taken over by much more Hindu images. I'll just glance through, maybe give you a moment to see them. These are some of the Buddhist caves, very beautiful, very atmospheric. And I love these earlier ones with more stupa images in, which again, yeah, it's an early imagery of Buddhism. And here with the fragmented wall paintings, and just that sense of walking in the footsteps of so many previous Buddhists practicing. Yeah, I did enjoy that aspect. And just the amount of work and time and devotion that people have put into these massive, massive places. Yeah, and here's a reclining Parinirvana Buddha. Just put that in there because it's so beautiful and huge. It's massive. And here's a Dr. Ambedkar. Yeah, that's the same one Vanessa showed at Anagarika. So, and I just put that in there because it was another little quote from Dr. Ambedkar, which I like. Positively, my social philosophy may be said in 3 words: liberty, equality, and fraternity. Let no one, however, say that I have borrowed my philosophy from the French Revolution. I have not. I have derived them from the teachings of my master, the Buddha. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And this is the site of the mass conversion. Okay. So actually, I'm just going to skip back a bit. I've missed a bit out. So in looking at the caves and stuff, I was looking at through some talks that Sangha gave in India that are in the complete works that are out. And in 1982, Sangha was saying about the importance of the caves. And it's important to know of them, and they show us how significant Buddhism was in India for a substantial period of time. But from those, we can have the impression of Buddhism as being a bit historic, something historic. And he wanted to draw out in that talk that Buddhism is very much in the present, not in the past. And that was a big reason why Dr. Ambedkar embraced Buddhism. He chose to convert from Hinduism to Buddhism and encouraged his people to do likewise. That the moral and spiritual principles that are conducive to the development of the individual human being, the principles that are conducive to enlightenment, are irrespective of time and space. So yes, this is the site of the mass conversion. And this is a big stupa-shaped building that is there to commemorate the mass conversion. So yeah, it's quite a significant place. And here's the 22 vows. yeah, I won't read them out because I don't want to take up too much time, but they are significant, and they're very much so he gave these 22 vows. He got people to take these in addition to the 5 precepts. I mean, it might seem quite a lot, 22 vows, and they're very much about people letting go of their Hindu faith, people making the shift to being Buddhists. Okay, so just to give a bit of background to that, when I was looking at it, I started to see how significant that is. So he was very clear in converting to Buddhism and leaving Hinduism. He wanted people to become fully Buddhist. So in looking at Sangharakshita's writing, and in the later photographs, there's a significant person in the resurrection of Buddhism in India, and that's the Sri Lankan Anagarika Dharmapala, who is somebody that Sangharakshita has written a biography about. So yeah, you can have a look at that if you're interested. He is an interesting character. Yeah, and had a significant effect. So he started the Mahabodhi Society in 1891 in his attempt to spread the Buddhist teachings in India, to resuscitate Buddhism in India. So a lot of the people that he had and taught the Dharma to were Hindus, and they were interested. They took on Buddhism to a certain extent, but they remained Hindus. And the effect of this was that the Mahabodhi Society was actually controlled by Hindus. So it really dampened the possibility of working for the good of Buddhism. And I found it funny, a bit I read of Sangharakshita and his first meeting with Ambedkar in 1952. Ambedkar assumed that he was a part of the society, and he gave him a stern rebuke of, why does your Mahabodhi Society have a Bengali Brahmin for its president? And Sangharakshita describes him of having said the word Brahmin with such contempt and scorn. That he, I think, really, felt affected by that. Yeah, it wasn't until after the mass conversions that this situation changed. So, moving on. Oh, here's a little one of Kemasiri and Arianata. Arianata was the guide for our tour. He wasn't ordained at the time, and actually he went to Nagaloka as a student, and this is his mum, and she is now also an order member. So yeah, this was lovely to meet her. And there's Kemasiri with her. And here we are at Sarnath. So this is the massive big stupa at Sarnath that marks the place where the Buddha gave his first teachings. So after his enlightenment, when he looked around and tried to decide who to share his experience with, he recalled his friends that he'd practiced austerities with. And so, yeah, he walked to find them, and this is marking the spot where he passed on his first teachings. So, yeah, again, another historic site, but I did have the sense here of connection, quite an international sense of connection with Buddhists from all different countries. I think there's maybe a group of Sri Lankan monks there practicing. There was Tibetans there. I think there was some Thai people there, all getting on with their own versions of practice. I love this picture. I had to put this one in. I enjoyed some of the Tibetan monks, their use of woolly hats, sometimes as sunshades, sometimes to keep warm. I thought it was quite creative. So, but yeah, just getting on with his practice in this ancient spot. And we did some meditations, puja, and we had this shrine for Khemasiri's dear friend Vajramai, who'd recently died at that time. So yeah, we had her present with us, which was lovely. And here we come to Anagarika Dharmapala. Yeah, so as I said, there is a biography of him written by Sangha, so do have a read. So yeah, when Dharmapala set up the Mahabodhi Society, one of his principal aims was to restore the temple at Bodh Gaya back to Buddhist hands. It didn't happen in his lifetime, sadly, but it did happen not so long after. So yeah, his valiant efforts to set things in motion did have an effect. But Sangha gives the evocative image of the wheel of the Dharma, so a very classic image in Buddhism, the Dharma chakra or Dharma chakra, the wheel of the Dharma, the teachings of the Dharma in motion. And he described them as having come to a standstill in India for hundreds of years, and that they'd become covered in rubbish, buried. And Dharmapala had removed much of the debris, and he'd given the wheel a push to get it moving again, but that the Hindus were pushing in the other direction. So it made it impossible for him to get that Dharma wheel rolling, and that it was Ambedkar, with the mass conversion, who truly set the Dharma chakra moving again in India. Okay, so we'll move on. So yeah, it's a fuzzy photo because it's night, it's dark. This is the eclipsed full moon as we arrived in Bodh Gaya, so at the Mahabodhi temple, the site of the Buddha's enlightenment. So it was a very atmospheric, beautiful evening. But yeah, moons are quite a hard thing to get an image of. So this is the Bodhi tree and the Mahabodhi temple. And just towards the end, this is the Vultures Peak, which was a favourite teaching spot of the Buddha. And here again, I enjoyed that sense of connection with Buddhists from all various different countries. I even had a really nice little chat with a South Korean monk who was very interested in who we were and where we'd come from. So yeah, that's the Vultures Peak. So, and then on to, actually no, sorry, I whipped by too quickly there, didn't I? Where am I going? Okay, so Vultures Peak, this is at the top, this is the shrine. That's the view, not very good air quality, I think. And yeah, I will come on to this picture because yeah, that's a nice picture. This is the convention, so this was the order convention. Yeah, and it was great. It was great getting that sense of the order in India, because an order conventions in the UK, of course, not many Indian order members can afford to come over to the UK. And yeah, and with climate change and all that, it's a shame they have to travel, but travelling there, it was really, inspiring, having a sense. And all those people getting up there was new order members introducing themselves. So yeah, there was a whole stream of new order members that were getting up and told us their names and introduced themselves. So it was a very moving, very inspiring event to be at, and they did some amazing shrines as well. We had all these big images. Here's a massive one of Dr. Ambedkar. Left me with lots of impressions, lots of sense of connection with the order. I can be aware at times of the possibility of falling into a bit of a romanticised view of the Sangha in India. You know, there are many people that are very courageous practitioners, but they're also imperfect human beings. And there is something for me about, if I stay in connection with my inspiration, in the Dharma in Dr. Ambedkar, I can have a sense of authentic connection. So I'll stop sharing. I've probably gone on far too long, haven't I? So I'll hand over to Kamasiri. Sorry, I've not left you much time.
Thank you.
I'll try and find you to spotlight.
Thank you very much. Well, Vanessa and Kshantika, yeah, lovely sharing. I'll keep it briefer. We won't have groups, but we won't go into necessarily anyway. Now, it was lovely to see the photos and hear you, Kshantika, and Vanessa. Yeah, just for a little bit longer, and we'll finish with the Sakyamuni mantra at the end, and people can do offerings, yeah, offer to this lovely shrine if you want to. Yeah, just to pick out, in a way, or focus a bit more on why Ambedkar chose the Dharma. You know, what's the Dharma? He chose Buddhism, but in a way, why? So this big mass conversion in Nagpur, where we saw pictures of Nagpur, Nagaloka, the place Vanessa talked about, that university for young people. That's near Nagpur, so it's near the place of conversion. You know, but was it 300 or 400,000 people with Ambedkar in 1956, taking the Buddhist precepts, becoming Buddhists. It was very much a free choice for people. It wasn't something that there was no pressure whatsoever. That's really an important point, I think. Ambedkar really, as we know now, really values freedom, isn't it? Really, freedom of choice. But you could, you know, why he chose Buddhism. There's three main reasons, which I also mentioned some weeks ago. That it's not a blind belief system. Buddhism, the Dharma, is rooted in reason. So there's no authority of a God. Yeah, that's really important. Is every human being, every living being can gain Buddhahood, yeah, or enlightenment, if you like. So that's really important. It's not a system based on beliefs that are not also with a rational underpinning. Also, he says it doesn't condone men's inhumanity to men, and certainly didn't condone the caste system. Yeah, so Buddhism is free of caste. In fact, the Buddha was courageous and radical in going against the caste system. You know, he treated everybody as equal, with equal opportunity. And many stories in the Pali Canon are there where you see the Buddha challenging the status quo and the caste system. There's lots of them. And the third reason for Ambedkar was also that, Buddhism originated in India. The Buddha was Indian, yeah. So it's there in the genes and in the roots of India. So it's not brought in from outside. So it's easier to relate to for many. But you could say it was a political move, yeah, because Ambedkar was the founder. Well, he was the first minister of law in independent India. He shaped the the constitution. And there are also many so-called Ambedkarites, so followers of Ambedkar's revolution, but who are not Buddhists. Yeah, there's lots of those as well. There's people like that in India as well, who've taken on a vision of Ambedkar for liberating themselves, but not necessarily through Buddhism. Yeah, you could think that Ambedkar, being also a politician, that his move would be a political one. But there's much more to it than that. His wish was for a social and economical and a political change. And he realized and experienced that injustice in society, you know, being untouchable himself. So, and he realized that how deeply that injustice or that caste system is rooted in Hindu thinking. Yeah, sadly so, really, and culture, hard to change. So he really saw that it needed to really make change, to really change the society. What needed to change is people's mindset, and that's where the Dharma or the Buddha Dharma comes in. The mental attitude, deeply held views and convictions, that needs to change. Yeah, and the Dharma is totally about that. Just a few quotes. That the emancipation of mind and soul is a necessary preliminary for the political transformation of society is Dr. Ambedkar's key point in his paper, Annihilation of Caste. And the basis for his belief that the only thing that can really eradicate injustice is the spread of the Buddha Dharma. It is this point that makes the annihilation of caste, in Sangharakshita's words, one of Dr. Ambedkar's most Buddhist works. The Dharma is concerned with transformation of mind, and it's only by transforming the mind that we can challenge deep divisions in society and create something new from a foundation of ethics, love, and wisdom. I find it really moving, actually. Dr. Ambedkar said of the Buddha, the greatest thing that the Buddha has done is to tell the world that the world cannot be reformed except by the reformation of the mind of men and of the mind of the world. So, and the Dharma is totally about changing mind. Yeah. A few examples from basic teachings or famous texts, like the opening verses of the Dhammapada. Yeah. One of the most, well, maybe the most well-known Buddhist text. Starts the Dhammapada, beautiful set of texts, by the way, if you don't know them, verses. The first two, experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows, even as the cartwheel follows the hoof of the ox drawing the cart. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness will follow like a shadow that never departs. The Dhammapada, here it is, yeah. I'll move quick. Yeah, and the first, a lot of us are familiar with the Noble Eightfold Path, another really important teaching, the Buddha. We often study it here. And the first stage of the Eightfold Path, so 8 stages, the first one is perfect vision, you know, or right view. So again, right view, seeing things as they are, seeing things more in line with reality. So again, pointing out how important it is how we see things. That's what we're trying to do when we practice the Dharma, changing how we see things. Yeah. The awakened vision, the enlightened vision, is seeing things as they really are, in line with the 3 lakshanas, another Buddhist teaching. Nothing is fixed or has a fixed entity or substance. Everything is impermanent. Any view not in line with this is causing suffering, unsatisfaction, dukkha. It's so clear, isn't it? How change can only happen. Yeah, so Buddhist wisdom or insight, or call it awakening, changes everything, deeply acknowledges interconnectedness, changes the ignorance that underlies all craving and hatred. And with that insight, it would be impossible to see another human being as less than any other human being. Impossible to cause harm. There is just metta, compassion, in each communication. And just read a few verses from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Yeah, just a few. May all beings, weak or strong, omitting none, tall, middle-sized or short, subtle or gross of form, seen or unseen, those dwelling near or far away, born or unborn, may every living being abound in bliss. May none deceive another, nor despise any person whatsoever in any place. May they not wish any harm to one another out of anger or ill will. Metta, what we practice every day. Yeah, it's a change of mind, a change of attitude. So yeah, Ambedkar chose Buddhism because the Buddha Dharma deals with the root of the problem of inequality. Practicing the Dharma is directly working on one's mind, training one's mind to see things very different indeed, to change ignorance, greed, and hatred into wisdom, generosity, and metta or compassion. So, as we heard from Vanessa and Kshantika, Triratna in India, the Triratna Sangha in India, practices the same as we do. Yeah, the same. All the members are mitras and not mitras. They practice the same precepts, study the same Dharma, create Sangha, following in the footsteps of the Buddha. And perhaps we could say that when you think of the differences, and I finish with this, is that maybe in the West we are a bit more towards being individualistic, and a bit more heady, more rational. So we probably need to develop a little bit more faith, a bit more the faith response or the devotional response. And in the East, in India, in a generalized way, you could say that there's a lot of faith there, how people practice. And of course, a lot of people come from the ex-untouchable or the Dalit community who've come into Triratna, into Buddhism that way, not necessarily have a lot of education. Yeah, I mean, that's changing. Luckily, that's really changing. But they needed study. They needed help with that to be able to study and think the Dharma through in that way more. So, but what we both need, what we all need in Sangha is true individuality, which is, I was going to say more about it, but that's for another time. But, true individuality is really not being totally identified with the group, but also not being not part of the group, like also being very, how to say it? Yeah, being standing alone in a way, and yet being part of Sangha, being part of society. Anyway, more about that another time. Yeah. And I really want to say again how the Buddha and Ambedkar and Sangharakshita, I see them all as really true individuals. The Buddha lived in India, went against rules and convention at the time, as we heard, very much so. Ambedkar went against the convention at his time in India, very much so. And Sangharakshita, when you read his biographies, he went against the convention at the time in the West, and in India, actually. That courage to practice and really change your mind and change minds. So, just gonna leave it there because it's time. But I do want to, if we have 1 minute, maybe just finish with that mantra. And thank everybody for being here on Zoom and in the Shrine Room. Another inspiring evening, I think, around connections with India, and more on Saturday morning. Don't forget, Saturday morning, we are together with India, with the Indian Sangha. So join in when you can. Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakyamuni sadhu. Muni Muni Mahamuni 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 Shakyamuni sadhu. Muni Muni Shakyamuni. I don't know whether there are still people on Zoom.
Yeah, we're still here.
I can't see. So
I'll stop recording.
maybe we can have the whole Zoom